I'm going to start with a few poems from Dark Card, my first book, which is about raising a son with Asperger's syndrome. For those of you who don't know, it's a form of high-functioning autism, sometimes known as idiot savant syndrome or Rain Man syndrome. And actually, the poem I'm going to start with is one I just wrote last week, but it's in the same spirit. It's called His First Death. He died when he was born for 10 or more seconds, while I drew in 3 long breaths. The hand pump hissed, and his face was dusk. I dreamed the dreams mothers dream for their first sons, kick and suck, pupils that tighten in sunlight, stand, walk, and run, act out and talk back, eye met by eye, roll in wet grass. 3 beats passed. His Dixie cup chest inflated, then crumpled. I drew in and released my own great, useless lung loads, each profligate breath. This next poem is called Apologies to My OBGYN. Sorry that my boy birthed himself too early, took up too much room in your prenatal nursery with his 2 pounds, 2 ounces, and did not oblige your nurses with easy veins. Sorry we were such pains in your ass, asking you to answer our night calls like that, and that he did everything so backwards, lost weight, gained fluid, blew up like a human balloon, and then shriveled. Sorry about how he defied your prognoses, skyrocketed premiums, weighted the costs in your cost-benefit analyses, skewed bell curve predictions into one long, straight line. Sorry he took so much of your time, being so determined to live. He spent today saving hopeless case nymph moths, trapped in the porch light, 1 matrix dot at a time. And now he's asleep, blue wing-beat pulse fluttering his left temple there again, just like it did then. So my parents both died from lung cancer, partly because they were smokers, and partly because the air was very dirty in the town that they and I grew up in. And this is a poem about my mother when she was ill. Indian pipe. Wild woodland flower found only in leap year at midnight in moss and fern fen. Rare, lucent, and cave-dwelling fish. Pale, cool glow, something hothouse or orchid or mushroom that melts at touch, or in too much sun. Your skin is like that. Thin membrane over blue pulse, architecture of small bones that build the body that fostered 5 children. I'm twice your size now, unrolling blinds against the light, wrapping you up in your blue flannel bathrobe. So little of you left. I've been lucky to have the Los Angeles Review publish a couple of my poems, and this is one of them, and thank you for doing that. The one that I'd like to read today is called The Innocence Project, and it's dedicated to Wilton Dedge, who spoke the last line of the poem. And this isn't loosely in the form of a huzzle, is that how you say it? Huzzle or guzzle, however you say it. Anyway, he spoke the last line. The Innocence Project. The state argued its case 4 times in 4 trial courts in front of a judge who handpicked the 4 juries. When 3 of them hung, the state still pressed its case to have you strung up too, kept calling for juries. The 4th one convicted you, battery and rape, based on 1 hair and a jail snitch's perjuries. When he cracked on the stand, and recanted, the DA still had the hair, displayed to the jurors evidence that justice was not blind but could see that blonde matches blonde, perfect logic for juries. You were only 19. For the next 20 years, you sat on death row. The hair stayed in cold storage until science caught up, showed DNA cannot lie like men can, or air, or spin stories for juries. When the swab yielded sperm from 4 men, but not yours, the state freed you at last, regretted your injuries, but did not redress them. You were left on your own, 20 years in arrears, beleaguered by furies. Still, you are exonerated, not a felon, free to vote and to fight and to tell your stories to school audiences like this one, who at least give a shit, think it not fair, and that you are brave for continuing to suck air and not killing someone, the judge, or your entire 4th jury. Exact and aloof as math, this DNA proof. God's own signature, not subject to forgeries. My most recent project has been working on environmental poems that I've paired with watercolor drawings done by a local artist. And if you want to see some examples of the pages that we're working on, I have them up there and you can take them, they're free. But this is one of the poems from that project, and it's called Last Bison Gone. Ours is the curse of the blighted touch that wilts every green shoot and flower we mean to admire, keep, recreate, or improve. New Zealand's huia bird, prized for her scimitar beak and pleated Victorian petticoat tail, was hunted extinct, except for this diving-belled brooch and sad hatband, fast falling to dust in the Smithsonian. We love what we love in the scientific way, efficient, empiric, vicious, too much, and always we touch it. Our breath blooming algae on the walls of Lascaux, shimmering in acid etched green. So most of you know that that really did happen. They had to reseal the caves at Lascaux because so many people were crowding in to see the primitive art that their air had changed the condensation level inside the cave, and this green algae was growing and it was eating the pigment. It was eating the art. So they had to seal it. So even what we love, we can't help destroying. Wild swan. What I knit at night unravels each dawn, yarn slipping like smoke from the day's bright needles. A prince once was a boy, a swan, my autistic son. It burns, his garment of nettle, his singlet of stars. The night cries are feral and awful. My hours are cloistered with wool. I make the knots faster and faster, knowing what morning will bring. At his lips, one white crescent pin feather. Under the counterpane, his shining wing. Thank you very much for listening.